Did you know that GNX is beating Iceman? Lights up, mics up. Let's get these likes up. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Welcome back to Talking Facts. I'm just as surprised as you, gang, that a 2-year-old album is beating one of the most vaunted and celebrated albums by the Drake OVO fan brigade as such as Iceman. But believe it or not, GNX at the 10-week mark has surpassed and outperformed Iceman in a bunch of different metrics, and I want to get to that. Salute to the general manager of the K-Bots farm, because I had no idea. I randomly came across a post that they put up, and it said GNX day 75, 15,062, 913. Iceman day 75, 8585459. Iceman has 6 extra tracks. It dropped music videos of all the tracks on album drop day, and it promoted and rolled the album out for 2 years. All of that is facts, gang. I keep saying that they had a Wikipedia page that's expressly saying that Iceman was announced back in 2024, back in August of 2024. It is a fact, and we waited 2 years. We had a whole lot of content and a lot of commentary about the upcoming album Iceman, and it took a long time. It almost felt like a fable, but it finally dropped, gang. And we're going to talk about it. I pulled up a lot of stats and metrics. I want to have a conversation because we have just witnessed something where there's a show called Survivor, and I believe the slogan goes outwit, outlast, outplay. This is called the long haul. They took the long way around. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And good music will outlast mediocre music, gang. I'm just going to be honest, and that looks like that's what's happening. People chose Luther over Janice, and we're going to put those 2 songs side by side and see how they're doing already, right? But end of the day, we've had to argue about these streaming numbers and about who's running the game and who did this, that, and the third in quote-unquote hip-hop. And the metric always seemed to somehow start, begin, and end on that side with how many streams you got, right? How many streams you got, boy? So end of the day, we are at a point now that it's hitting the 10-week mark, 75 days later, at the same point in time that record that Kendrick dropped with only a few songs on it, right? Versus an album with 18 tracks that had, I believe, $13 million in promo. It's a lot going on. It is mind-boggling that album can still outperform the album with everything, radio, everything that this album had in its favor. It still is dropping off the charts. It's dropping in numbers. It's dropping in every kind of metric. People don't even really care about the album anymore. Even Hibbity Bibbity or Maid of Honor, they are there, and some of the core fans are still listening. Yes, they're still streaming it, but I don't hear nobody talking about it, gang. Even that side, even those guys over there aren't talking about it. I believe when Luther was out, everybody was talking about Luther, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't think nobody's really talking about Shabang and Janice right now, gang. I'm just going to be honest. Poor Janice had to shut the F up for little to nothing, because that thing is still fighting for shelf space with an album that came out 2 years ago from an artist that's supposed to be his little man's, right? He said on this new record that he don't see where he ever ruled and how he ever had a shot at being in his place or in his space. He couldn't understand why people were even comparing the two. If you listen to his lyrics over there on the Iceman album, he pretty much was flabbergasted that you even put him in the same category, gang. He said, I don't remember you running things. I don't remember your reign. So let's talk about it. Let's have this conversation. What I did was, I went and I did a few prompts, right, on Google, and I wanted to get the metrics, because after I saw that, I said, I want to do some research for myself, and I want to bring this to the people that want to hear it and understand what's going on. It is a lot to intake. It's a lot to talk about. So let's just get started, right? What I did first was I wanted to hear or see, I wanted to compare Kendrick's GNX to Drake's Iceman for the first 75 days, right? So this is what they told me. Drake's Iceman opened with significantly higher first week sales, 463,000 units, than Kendrick's Lamar's surprise drop, GNX, that had 319,000 units. However, over a roughly 75-day 10-week post-release window, both albums tightened considerably in overall consumption, with GNX sitting at roughly 1.458 billion Spotify streams compared to Iceman's 1.456 billion streams. Now, guys, you got to remember, they were telling us when this guy came back outside, all was going to be shut down. They didn't know that 10 weeks later, Dot was going to squeeze out a couple mil on him, right? We didn't know that we would still be talking about Iceman versus GNX. That's why it's kind of quiet on Twitter, gang. It's been a little hush hush. Yeah, they had that really great first week run, but we all saw it in real time how the numbers were slowing down. I believe it was the very next week. The very next couple of days, the shit had a 60% drop. It went down fast, hard. All of them curiosity streams, they gave way to real numbers, and the thing started to fall quickly, and the ice started to melt. A lot of them came in my comments saying, Challz, you crazy, you just hate it. Just give the boy his respect. You see what happened? He won. Just face it. Shut your ass up. You always on here talking with your trash content. Leave it alone, man. Let him enjoy the moment. Okay, we let him enjoy the moment. 10 weeks later, the moment is over. This is way too fast for this album to be dropping out for a man who dropped 3 albums at the same time, and they was telling us that when he came back out, he was going to save the songs. He's going to save the summer. Well, he ain't even get the song of the summer. Right? A little record by Young Miami low-key did that, okay? I don't think they was expecting that. Nothing else was out to even compete with it, and he still didn't get Song of the Summer. But let me continue. First week in launch comparisons, Drake debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 463,000 equivalent units in May of 2026, right? They were licking ice and hitting it with blow torches, and homeboy went and found the magic paper or the envelope, and he opened it up. Aiden Ross told him, you got to get to the embassy immediately. He opened up the envelope. When he got there, Drake was in the window peeking out like some old grandma looking at the top of the out the mini blinds, right? End of the day, They pulled that stunt. They lit the CN Tower up, did all kind of nonsense. They iced out the seats at the game, did all kind of stuff to pop this album, and we still got a race. It's still a race from a guy who dropped a surprise album. And I know you guys are going to start with the bullshit. You're going to start saying, well, Challz, his label ain't doing this, that, and the third. His label did what they're supposed to do. And at the end of the day, this is how it is. You can't win with this guy. You can't win with his fans. If he wins, he's the king. If he loses, he's the victim. It's always some kind of way to wiggle out of this conversation. It doesn't matter what you say to these people. It doesn't matter what you bring up. They're going to say one way or the other, he got burned, he's a victim. So it's really no talking to him. So I'm just going to talk to you guys. Okay, let me continue. The 75-day trajectory and the streaming. The sales velocity. Iceman achieved platinum eligibility within 3 weeks, maintaining a strong physical and streaming footprint early on. Despite a smaller initial opening week, GNX exhibited exceptionally persistent daily catalog streams, narrowly outpacing Iceman in the cumulative Spotify streams at the 10-week mark. Okay, gang, you got to understand, that's Drake's jam. Spotify, oh, they in bed with him. They supposed to make sure everything is laid out, put him on every playlist they can. That's his home base. And I know they coming out. I can hear them coming. They running up as fast as they can. Oh, it's body. Nobody's bodying this long, gang. Nobody bots for 2 years, my guy. I need you to understand what's going on. Nobody cares that much. You're losing more money by botting than you are by making any you're not making any money if you're going to bot for 2 years. Let's stop the botting nonsense. This is mano y mano. This is sales versus sales. Your guy got caught. He caught up with him in 10 weeks. And he ain't even racing no more. There is no tour. There is no Super Bowl. It's 2026. And he caught up with him at the same time. All of that stuff was right there. When he did it, it was 10 weeks. This other guy did it in 10 weeks. And what we are seeing now is one of them is starting to already fall. One of them is already up. Okay? So end of the day, we're going to have a very close race that's going to start to get out of hand. They're going to say, Challz, it really ain't but a couple million. But you got to understand. That means Iceman, like I said a few weeks ago, was going out of the picture. And what we're seeing is, slowly but surely, we're watching an album that continued to rise while the other one's falling. It was a long road to get here. Let me continue. So then I said, break down the pure sales versus the streaming equivalent units for both projects. Drake's Iceman relied almost entirely on massive streaming volume, whereas Kendrick Lamar's GNX pulled a significantly higher share of revenue from pure traditional sales. And both projects, however, heavily favored streaming equivalent albums, SEA, over track equivalent albums, TEA. Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty. Kendrick Lamar's GNX. Okay, the equivalent union, we just heard that it was 319. Drake was 463, okay? That meant that the streaming units were 285 for Dot, 449 for Iceman. Pure album sales were 32,000 for Dot, which was 10%, right? And 13,000 for Drake, which was 2%. Okay? So out of the 97%, which was the 449, 2.8% of that for Drake was pure album sales. Okay? Track downloads, Dot had 2,000, Drake had 1,000. On-demand streams, Dot had 379 versus Drake's 462. These are the first week metrics, gang. That's what happened in the first week, but Dot physicals came in, a lot of stuff changed. So let me continue. The takeaways from that data that we just heard and the data that's coming up. Kendrick Lamar generated nearly 2.5 more traditional sales than Drake in week 1. 32,000 versus 13,000. This is especially impressive considering GNX was a total surprise release initially available only as a standard digital download. Streaming dominance, this is the next topic. Drake's launch was an absolute streaming juggernaut, capturing 449 SCA units from 462 million on-demand streams. This gave Iceman a massive 144,000 overall unit advantage out the gate. So peep game, pay attention, stay focused. That means out the gate, oh yeah, Iceman slaughtered everything. He came out with a sword. This dude was on some other stuff. Right? He was Odysseus, right? This was a slaughter. It wasn't nobody close to him. First week sales, gang. But let me continue. Track versus album focus. The track equivalent albums, individual song downloads, were nearly non-existent for both projects, accounting for less than 1% of total consumption, as fans overwhelmingly preferred streaming the bodies of work in full. This is 2026. People rather stream, okay? It's much easier just to go on your phone and stream the stuff rather than buy something. It is what it is. So what I did next was ask for a breakdown of Janice, STFU versus Luther after 10 weeks. 10 weeks is enough of a window to gauge any kind of project. So we're going to do that right here. After 10 weeks, Kendrick Lamar and SZA's Luther from GNX significantly outperformed Drake's Janice STFU from Iceman in sustained streaming longevity and chart dominance, despite Drake's single having a slightly more explosive initial debut week. Gang, they pushed it, they went hard, and people were ready for Drake. But like I said, it's a curiosity factor. And you got to remember, it was a surprise release. They released Luther later, right? Just like they did Janice. But end of the day, Luther came out on the winning side. Let's get to it. The 10-week metric breakdown. Luther, which is Kendrick Lamar SZA, maintained a massive streaming footprint. By its 10th week post-release, it was still logging 21.9 million weekly official streams in the U.S. alone. Okay? You got to understand that's massive. Janice STF, which is by Drake, why we don't know that, I wouldn't know, experienced a steeper drop in streaming velocity after its initial launch window. By week 10, it had largely fallen out of the top streaming tier. This stuff don't have the staying power that they think it do, okay? But let me continue. Pacing at roughly around 14 million weekly streams as its daily volume dipped closer to the 2.3 million mark globally, okay? So this is a drastic difference, gang. It's night and day. People preferred Luther over Janice STFU. All right, so let me continue. Drake's Janice STFU broke all-time single-day platinum records at launch, hitting 50 million global streams in a single day and pulled 39.9 million Spotify streams in its full week. However, Luther opened even higher on Spotify at 49.5 million first-week streams and held its audience for better over the 2.5. It held its audience far better over the 2.5 month stretch. Luther just got better legs. It's just a better record, gang. And you got to understand, when I listen to Janice, I hear a dude dissing. I don't know how long you're going to be dissing and have a hit record. People don't want to keep playing that over and over, gang. I'm just going to be honest. Everybody doesn't. Okay, you're fans. Yeah, they want to hear you dissing over and over. Luther got people that didn't know barely who Drake, Kendrick, and SZA was to still play it. They've reached new fans that they didn't have, gang. It's a different kind of animal. Right? It played and played, and it just got bigger and bigger. The video, everything, it knocked it out the park. And more people wanted to hear that. Nobody want to hear you constantly dissing all the time. But let me stay focused, right? Fueled by his incredible streaming retention, Luther spent 10 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, ultimately extending to 13 weeks. Conversely, Janice STFU was blocked from holding the top spot long term due to lower radio airplay and faster streaming decay relative to competing pop records. Gang, it's a lot of pop stuff he was competing with. Okay? And not only that, it said that it was lower radio airplay. Didn't say it didn't get no radio. It just said that they wasn't playing it that much no more. Gang, it's two different things. They both got radio. That's what people need to understand. Janice was one of the fastest rising songs on the radio. So they can't take that away and say, oh, it wasn't getting no radio. It got radio play, gang. Don't let them fool you. But let me continue. The road to $1 billion. Because of his historic post-Week 10 performance, Luther became the fastest hip-hop song on the streaming era to cross 1 billion streams on Spotify, hitting the milestone in just 7 months. Gang, so Luther was a knockout blow. It knocked out everything. And this is from the guy who ain't even a pop rapper. He's not a pop star. He just, like they say, it might blow up, but it won't go pop, right? He just does hip-hop, good music, and it resonates with the people. So then I asked, do a full breakdown of how GNX outperformed Iceman during that 10 week. I wanted to know week by week how this happened, right? Kendrick Lamar's GNX outperformed Drake's Iceman by pulling ahead in cumulative Spotify streams at the 10-week mark, sitting at 1.458 billion streams compared to Iceman's 1.456 billion. While Drake captured a much higher headline-grabbing opening week, Kendrick used superior catalog, sustainability, and organic listening retention. Gang, that word is key. Organic listener retention to close the gap and edge out the victory by 2 million streams by week 10. Gang, you gotta understand, this was a long process. 10 weeks later, for that to have already surpassed it in the same window of time, right? They two different moments in time, right? That was 2024, this is 2026, but we're talking about in that span of their lifetime of the 10 weeks that they dropped, GNX held its own longer and it walked them down, right? But let me read how it walked them down. Let's get into it. Fewer tracks, more density. Everybody kept saying less is more. You don't got to put all these tracks. If GNX is hanging with this thing for all those weeks that it did with less tracks, that means it was more people streaming it. Because if you got 18 tracks versus 12, you should easily be dog walking it. But it's more people going back to GNX, listening to it again and again. That's how this works. You can have 18 tracks of filler that nobody really wants to return to. That is what's happening. Let me continue. GNX averaged 121.5 million streams per song, while Iceman averaged the lower 80.8 million streams per song. Kendrick's individual album cuts have held they held fan attention far better than Drake's deep track list. Gang, let me explain to you what that means. That means people wanted to actually hear GNX over and over. People organically let it ride. Play it back, let it go. This thing with Iceman, people were getting halfway through, going to do something else. They were getting to the middle, getting to the end, going to do something else. By the time they was getting to track 18, they was checking out. With GNX, when they got to track 12, they was like running back. Two different things. You can't fake it. It's right there in the numbers. You can't bot these numbers. You can't do this. It would have already got disqualified. So this ain't bots, gang. We're not even having a conversation. We're not even talking to people who's saying that, right? Let me continue. This is about, now we're going to get into the marketing return on investment versus organic longevity. This guy put a lot of money into this marketing. People try to get in my comments when I tell you he spent millions and try to say, Challz, he didn't do that. He only spent 3 million. No, when I was saying 15 million, that's what it was. People like, Challz, stop saying that. He didn't spend 15 million. He only spent 3 to get the CN Tower. No, it's a lot more. It's a lot more to it. Let me read it. All right, the promotion gap. Drake rolled out Iceman with an expensive multi-year rollout, including a $15 million promotional stunt to freeze the CN Tower. Okay, this guy lost millions on this. Dot did a surprise drop, gang. It's two different things. They're not even close to who won and who lost. It's not even close. GNX was a complete surprise drop with zero advanced promotion or leading radio singles. Think about how long we had to watch Iceman be built into what it is. Episode 1, 2, and 3. We ended up getting episode 4 months after. We got all this stuff with the ice in the middle of Toronto, and it reached embarrassing proportions. And he still 10 weeks later is taking a lump. But let me continue. Iceman experienced a front-loaded surge with streaming volume tapering off significantly after its massive first week peak of 462.2 million on-demand streams. In contrast, GNX streams grew organically over its first week and maintained unusually high baseline streaming numbers over the next 2.5 months. All right? Now, we're going to talk about pure consumer investment. Traditional album purchases. Despite Drake winning the total consumption units in week 1 due to streaming volume, GNX generated nearly 3 times the pure sales of Iceman in its opening week, right? Kendrick's listener base showed a higher baseline of hard financial support, digital downloads, whereas Drake's project relied almost exclusively on passive playlist streaming, accounting for 97% of his debut gang. Some people would equate that to somebody using unnatural means, aka bots. Some people would say, well, it's because it's bots. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to take it as his fans, they're not as committed to preserving his legacy by going to actually pay for some shit. Okay, let's say that. I'm not even gonna say it's bots or not, because I can't prove that. I'm gonna leave that to you to say. But at the end of the day, we could just honestly say this: they're not buying it. They don't want him to get the bump in numbers with buying it. They'll go stream it all day, 3 and 4 times in a row. They'll sit there and put the album on repeat. Oh yeah, they'll do that for you, but they're not gonna pay 1 red cent on it. Okay, end of the day, some of them will, but most of them won't. That's why 3 times more people actually paid for Kendrick stuff. Sometimes you just want to have it. You want to support the artist. It is what it is. I don't think his fans want to support him if they got to pull out their pocket. They got to pull out their wallet or their pocketbook. All right, let me finish. Both historic records share the elite distinction of being the first rap albums where every single track charted concurrently on the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 straight weeks. So that is good, right? That is big news for both of them. So they both shining in that regard. Kendrick's 10-week victory was heavily anchored by the SZA-assisted mega single Luther, which held the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. And if Drake could have had a single to do the same thing, no matter who was doing it with him, he would have did the same thing. So we're not going to say, well, it's SZA, but they're going to make million excuses and make it like this, that, and the third. But we know what's going on. Let me continue. So, 10 weeks straight, Drake's leading record, Janus STFU, suffered from quicker streaming decay and could not anchor Iceman's chart presence past the opening month, gang. What we saw was, in my opinion, an album that was only, I think, geared at revenge. Most of it was dark. He was trying to get back at everybody, and they thought that the dissing and the shock value would carry this thing, but it looks like in 10 weeks, an album that literally has more songs, had more hype, more promo, spent more money, had more to lose and more to gain with what's arguably the biggest artist on the planet, is now starting to lose in week 10 to a surprise drop from an artist that Drake himself feels that he's superior to. He said on that Iceman record that he don't see where were your hits at. I never saw you rocking out. I never saw you on my level. You never been on my level. So now we see all of that talk that we've been getting hit with for not even the last 2 years. It's been for, I want to say, 10 years, but it got worse and worse and louder that this guy can't compete with me. I'm that guy, right? Big as the Super Bowl, this, that, and the third. But now we're seeing that even those numbers, even those vaunted numbers and streams that we've been hearing about forever, all of that is null and void, because even that is getting taken from him. Not just his legacy and all these other things that he's messing up. Now, the last thing that they got, gang, you know they only got one thing left. Out of everything. They lost the battle, they lost the war, they lost a lot of shit. Only thing left they really got is these streaming numbers. And if he beats him in that, when this whole year walks away, when we get out of this thing, and if that thing is doubling his sales still 2 or 3 years later, and he ain't even dropped, if he don't drop nothing in the next 5 months or whatever, and GNX starts to still surpass Iceman, gang, they're gonna be really quiet. But they'll find something to say. Oh, they'll victimize in some kind of way where it won't even matter, gang. I'm gonna leave it at that, man. Listen, congratulations, K. Dot, putting out a solid piece of work. Some people say it's a classic, some people say it's a masterpiece. And one thing's for sure, people are returning to hear it, right? Now, I'm not saying that nobody's listening to Iceman, Hibbity Bibbity, and Made of Honor, but it ain't as many as you wanted it to be because a lot more still going back to play GNX, all right? I'm gonna leave it at that, man. Let me know what you think in the comments, man. CLBMG. Head on over to black-yeti.com. Let them know who sent you. They ship all over the continental U.S. Go over to my Patreon. I got a Patreon account. You can join that for free, but I also do stuff. I do content for paid subscribers. We got new music out, man. My man 4 Eyes, the Ugly Professor. I'm on there. I got several tracks on there and quite a other really good MCs. If you really into hip-hop, go tap in, plug in the 4 Eyes, the Ugly Professor. He's the producer and he raps on there too. And a lot of people on there are really good, but only lock in with this album if you really into real deal hip-hop, right? Talking about backpack shit, hip-hop, right? This, that, and the third. The album's called Addition by Subtraction. Go tap in, all right? Last but not least, every morning, Monday through Friday, I got a new show. Well, it's been up for about 2 months now, but 8 a.m. Eastern time. This, that, and the third morning show. Lock in with your boy, get in the comments. Let me know what you think, man. Listen, I'm out of here. I'm going to catch y'all on that flip side. Peace.
Look, mission impossible to drop a few lines without dropping old times when Southern Hill was still a gold mine. When pistol grips was my shit and I sold mine. When Alias was not a show and they told mine.
Elevate your mind with high quality THC infused products. BlackYeti.com. Black-Yeti.com.
CLB.
Get my coat, get my sheepskin, grab my wallet, get my pocket knife, and get that hat right there. We out. Grab my pocket knife too. Let's go. When I first came to the city, niggas didn't believe me. I just wanted to join a team and throw assist pass easily. 6 man off the bench, alley-oop pass freely. Suit up for one game and hope a scout might see me. But nah, niggas is greedy, wasn't rocking with him. Unplugged the scoreboard, put a lock on the gym. Told me to power forward, point guard at the rim. And left me with no center and a ball full of phlegm. Not knowing that I'm a dog, a Rottweiler within, with the heart of a pit bull that don't bark for pretend. My bites cut deep, break the bone and the skin. With the level of hustlenomics you do not comprehend. So first I took a block down on the west side end, and then secured a spot with some goons and some kin. And then sent out some flyers, let the games begin. And in 6 months time, the city like that's him. Oh yeah, he the one that moved the hustle to the burbs. And yeah, he the one that knocked the hustlers off the curb. And yeah, he the one that set up shop without a word. And he the one that got it cracking. And all he did was rapping by the Hooters. I kept killers from being shooters. Put a mic in a thug's hand, now he loyal like Pats fans. Take a man off the streets past the needles and crack cans. Promise mama to keep him safe, then put some food in his face and he'll kill for you. But I don't need him for that. Click like, click share, tell them bitches we back. Share the whole location, tell them niggas where we at. Cause we out here and we ain't the cheese, we the trap.